The rain lashed against the windows of our Seattle home, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, this house had been my sanctuary, the place where Genevieve and I built our life, brick by painstaking brick. I'm Torin, a software engineer. I had poured my heart and soul into providing for my family, never imagining that the very foundation of our happiness was built on a lie. It all started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Genevieve, a vibrant and outgoing marketing executive, had always been the life of the party, but lately she seemed distant, preoccupied. Her laughter, once a constant melody in our home, became a rare and strained echo. She started working late, attending conferences out of state, and her phone became an extension of her hand, guarded with a ferocity that was utterly unlike her. I dismissed it initially, attributing it to the pressures of her demanding job. I told myself I was being paranoid, that my anxieties were unfounded. After all, Genevieve and I were rock solid, weren't we? The first real crack appeared during our anniversary dinner. We had reservations at the Pink Door, our favorite Italian restaurant downtown. I had even managed to snag the corner table with the stunning view of Puget Sound. But Genevieve barely touched her food, her eyes darting nervously around the room. She kept checking her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen with a speed that made me dizzy. "Everything all right, love?" I asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. She flinched, pulling her hand away as if burned. "Just work stuff," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "Big presentation tomorrow." I tried to shake off the unease that was creeping into my heart. I wanted to believe her, but the way she wouldn't meet my eyes spoke volumes. The following weeks were a blur of unanswered questions and mounting suspicion. Genevieve's behavior became increasingly erratic. She started hiding her phone, taking calls in hushed tones in the backyard, and her explanations became more convoluted and less believable. One evening, while she was at a conference in Portland, I decided to surprise her with flowers. I knew the name of the hotel where she was supposedly staying, the Benson, a historic landmark known for its elegance and charm. I called the hotel, intending to have the flowers delivered to her room. "I'd like to send flowers to Genevieve under the name Torin," I said to the receptionist. There was a pause, a disconcerting silence that stretched on for what felt like an eternity. "I'm sorry, sir," the receptionist said finally, her voice laced with hesitation. "We don't have a Genevieve registered as a guest." My blood ran cold. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat of fear and disbelief. "Are you sure?" I stammered. "Perhaps there's been a mistake." "I've checked the system twice, sir," the receptionist replied. "There's no one by that name currently checked in." I hung up the phone, my hand trembling. The truth hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. She was lying. She wasn't at a conference. She was somewhere else with someone else. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, and I felt a sickening wave of nausea wash over me. I spent the next few days in a daze, going through the motions of my life but feeling utterly detached from reality. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and my mind raced with a million different scenarios, each more horrifying than the last. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how. I was afraid of what she would say, afraid of the lies she would spin, afraid of the pain that was sure to follow. Finally, I decided to enlist the help of my best friend, Jasper. Jasper was a private investigator, a gruff but loyal man with a knack for uncovering the truth. I met him for coffee at a small cafe near his office, my hands shaking so badly that I could barely hold my cup. I poured out my heart to him, telling him everything that had happened, from Genevieve's increasingly erratic behavior to the phone call with the hotel receptionist. Jasper listened patiently, his brow furrowed in concern. When I finished, he took a long sip of his coffee and said, "I'll look into it, Torin. I promise I'll get to the bottom of this." A week later, Jasper called me, his voice grim. "I have something you need to see," he said. "Can you meet me at my office?" I arrived at Jasper's office, my stomach churning with anxiety. He led me into a small, dimly lit room and gestured towards a computer screen. "I've been tracking Genevieve's movements for the past week," he said, "and I've uncovered some disturbing information." He clicked on a file, and a series of photos appeared on the screen. My heart stopped. The photos showed Genevieve entering a small, secluded cabin in the woods outside of the city. In several of the photos, she was accompanied by a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, muscular, with a dark, handsome face. They were holding hands, kissing, and laughing together. The final photo showed them entering the cabin, their arms wrapped around each other. I stared at the photos, my mind reeling. The man in the photos wasn't just some casual acquaintance. He was her lover. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, leaving me gasping for air. I felt a searing pain in my chest, a pain so intense that I thought I might actually die. "Who is he?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely a whisper. "His name is Alaric," Jasper said. "He's a personal trainer at the gym Genevieve goes to." A personal trainer, of course. It all made sense now. The sudden interest in fitness, the new workout clothes, the early morning classes that she had been so insistent on attending, it was all a lie. "I want to know everything," I said, my voice hardening. "I want to know how long this has been going on, and I want to know everything about him." Jasper nodded. "I'll get you everything you need," he said. Over the next few days, Jasper pieced together the details of Genevieve's affair. He discovered that it had been going on for 6 months, starting shortly after she began working with Alaric. They had been meeting at the cabin in the woods several times a week, and they had even taken a few weekend trips together, using the business conferences as cover. Jasper also uncovered some information about Alaric. He was married, with 2 young children. He had a reputation for being a womanizer, and he had reportedly had affairs with several other clients in the past. I was devastated. Not only had Genevieve betrayed me, but she had done so with a man who was clearly a serial cheater. I felt like a fool, a naive idiot who had been blind to the truth for far too long. I spent hours pacing the floor, my mind consumed by anger, grief, and a burning desire for revenge. I wanted to confront Genevieve, to scream at her, to demand an explanation. But I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. She would just lie, deny, and manipulate as she had always done. I needed to be smart, to be strategic. I needed to make her pay for what she had done. I decided to consult with a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Bront who specialized in divorce cases. I met with her at her office, and I laid out the details of Genevieve's affair, presenting her with the photos and the evidence that Jasper had gathered. Bront listened intently, her expression grim. When I finished, she said, "You have a very strong case, Torin. We can file for divorce immediately, and we can seek to obtain a significant portion of her assets." I nodded. "I want everything," I said. "I want to make sure she doesn't get away with this." Bront smiled grimly. "We'll do everything we can to protect your interests," she said. I filed for divorce the next day. I served Genevieve with the papers at our home, while Alaric was conveniently parked down the street. The look on her face when she saw the papers was priceless. She was shocked, stunned, and utterly speechless. She tried to deny the affair, to claim that the photos were doctored, that Jasper was lying. But I didn't give her a chance to explain. I simply turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the driveway, tears streaming down her face. The divorce proceedings were long and contentious. Genevieve fought tooth and nail, trying to minimize her culpability and protect her assets. She claimed that I was emotionally abusive, that I had neglected her, and that the affair was a result of my failings as a husband. But Bront was prepared. She presented the evidence of Genevieve's affair in court, along with evidence of Alaric's history of infidelity. She painted a picture of Genevieve as a manipulative, selfish woman who had betrayed her husband and her marriage. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. Genevieve was ordered to pay me a significant sum of money in alimony, and she was stripped of many of the assets that she had hoped to retain. She was also ordered to pay my legal fees. I had won, but the victory felt hollow. The money didn't matter. The assets didn't matter. What mattered was that Genevieve had betrayed me, had shattered my trust, and had destroyed the life that we had built together. I knew that I would never be able to fully recover from the pain that she had inflicted on me. But I was determined to move on, to rebuild my life, and to find happiness again. I sold our house in Seattle, the house that held so many memories, both good and bad. I moved to a small town in Oregon, a place where I could escape the reminders of my past and start anew. I bought a small cabin in the woods, a place where I could reconnect with nature and find peace. I threw myself into my work, developing new software and building my career. I also started volunteering at a local animal shelter, finding solace in the company of the dogs and cats who needed my help. It took time, but eventually I began to heal. The pain didn't disappear entirely, but it became less intense, less all-consuming. I learned to forgive Genevieve, not for her sake, but for my own. I realized that holding onto anger and resentment was only hurting me. I also realized that I was not responsible for her actions. She had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. A few years later, I received a phone call from a mutual friend. She told me that Genevieve's life had taken a turn for the worse. Alaric had left her for another woman and she had lost her job. She was struggling financially and she was reportedly deeply unhappy. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I didn't regret my decision to divorce her. She had made her bed and now she had to lie in it. I never spoke to Genevieve again. I didn't want to rehash the past, and I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing that she still had an impact on my life. I focused on building my future, on creating a life that was filled with happiness, peace, and love. And eventually I found it. I met a wonderful woman named Imogen, a kind, compassionate, and intelligent artist who shared my values and my dreams. We fell in love and we built a life together, a life that was based on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. I learned from my past mistakes and I made sure to never repeat them. I cherished Imogen and I made her feel loved and appreciated every single day. I knew that I was lucky to have found her and I was determined to make our relationship last. As I sit here now, looking out at the rain-soaked trees outside my cabin window, I can honestly say that I am happy. I have a fulfilling career, a loving partner, and a peaceful life. I have overcome the pain of my past, and I have emerged stronger and wiser. And I owe it all to the betrayal that shattered my world and forced me to rebuild it, piece by painstaking piece. I'm glad to share my story with you, hoping it can help you in your own situation. In the end, remember to always value yourself and never settle for anything less than you deserve.